and host of the Caucus Room podcast, and Susan Del Percio, Republican strategist and MSNBC political analyst. Most members of my Sunday family. Good to see you both. So, Susan, what do you think of the president's remarks, and how are they being received in general?
I think they were great. I actually thought they were probably the funniest of the night. And that's no diss at the
Colin Jost.
Colin Jost, thank you. But you know what's important is he had fun with it. And I think that's something that Donald Trump just could never understand, is that you can have fun at some things. And even though he blasted him on Truth Social, I think at the end of the day, this is an insider's dinner, so I don't think it will make a big splash with the rest of the country. But his remarks should be taken very well, I think.
What about you, Don, in terms of how well you think those Trump jokes played in Trump world? And let's face it, to Donald himself.
I think they probably played poorly in Trump world, but nobody in Trump world is the audience for the White House Correspondents' Dinner. You have to remember that from day one, Donald Trump said that the media is the enemy of the people. So while this is a glamorous event and it's something that everybody here in Washington, D.C. looks forward to, it is a professional gathering of the media who Donald Trump declared to be their enemy. He never even went for 4 years because he couldn't take for a moment the lighthearted ribbing that happens to the president every single year. So Susan is right. The bottom line is that Joe Biden was present. And I didn't think his set was riotous, but he was there and it was steady. And I think it was the perfect encapsulation of his presidency.
So on Friday, President Biden made a stop here in New York City for a live interview with the iconic radio host Howard Stern. And that's where he discussed several pressing issues. But there's something that he said that is making headlines. Let's take a listen.
Can I tell you a fantasy I had? I don't know if you're going to debate your opponent.
I am somewhere. I don't know when. I'm happy to debate him.
So that's a big shift from last month when the president said a debate would be contingent upon Trump's behavior, Susan. Trump says he's willing to debate President Biden anytime, anywhere. So will it happen, and should it?
Yeah, and by the way, I don't think those two statements cancel each other out. I think there will still have to be rules. The RNC basically said we will not accept anything from the National Debate Commission, which is or Presidential Debate Commission. So it'll be interesting to see what Donald Trump does. But there will have to be rules. This is how things get negotiated out. I don't think we're going to see it happen until after the conventions. But there's no reason Biden had to say he will debate Trump, because then it would look too weak to say, well, no, or under these conditions. I thought his response was right.
Okay. Don, what about you? What did you think about how the president did in this particular style of interviewing? Should he do more radio shows? Because, as you know, in the past, he's been on The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God. Is it time to do more in this format?
It probably is. It's easy to go to Howard Stern. Howard Stern is effectively mainstream media at this point, but it's important to recognize that the podcast generation gets and accepts their news from different spaces. They're not watching us, unfortunately, while a whole lot of our people are watching us. There's a segment, and the White House recognizes that there's a segment that's not watching us. I just want to say on the debates really quickly, it is insane to talk about a universe in which there will be no presidential debates. And it's particularly hurtful this time around because Virginia State has been the first HBCU to be awarded a presidential debate in the general election by the United States Commission on Presidential Debates. It's a historic moment, not only for Virginia State and President Abdullah, but it's a historic moment for HBCUs everywhere to show that we are institutions of a similar, if not superior par to other schools. And it will really be unfortunate for Donald Trump to rob the country of that moment.
Point well taken. I'm glad you made that. So the campaign trail is providing a very interesting split screen, right? You've got President Biden stumping in battleground states last week, and at the same time, you have Donald Trump in and out of a New York criminal courtroom. Don, how best can the president take advantage of this opportunity while Trump is caught up in his legal web?
This is what the ads have got to be focused on. I debate with my friends all the time who think that Democrats aren't doing enough. Well, I tell them all the time that the messaging and the outreach hasn't started yet because there is a cycle of campaigning for the presidency. You don't want to shoot it all too early. But I think it goes back to the old political adage. If you stop lying about me, I'll stop telling the truth about you. All Joe Biden has to do is tell the truth about Donald Trump. All of my footage would be him walking into courtrooms, would be sitting him in a courtroom. I would call him the defendant. I would call him the unindicted co-conspirator. And the fortunate thing that Joe Biden has on his side is that all of that is the truth. It doesn't have to get into conjecture. This is who Donald Trump is at this point. He is a criminal conspirator, and all Joe Biden has to do is drive that home to the minds of the American public when people start paying attention in September and October.
Susan, I mean, it's clear that Trump's mountain of legal issues, I mean, it's taken away from his ability to campaign. But put this in perspective. Just how damaging is this for him? Or is it, given the audience that he is seeking?
Well, it's been a week, so it hasn't been that damaging, except for the visuals that Don referred to, because he's absolutely right. Seeing him go in and out of a courthouse does say a lot. I think the biggest challenge, or the thing I'm looking for, is will he be able to keep his composure as this trial goes on? Now, Donald Trump has always played the victim. He has always blamed others. And frankly, when he campaigns, he only does quick stop-ins into states. So he could be campaigning more. He's going to be going out to a couple of states midweek. But why wasn't he campaigning this weekend? He could have done that. He could campaign on Monday. But the fact is that they don't have enough campaign cash on hand to actually hold these rallies.
Interesting. Trump's daughter-in-law and RNC co-chair Lara Trump said on Election Day the committee will have both poll watchers and, quote, people who can physically handle ballots, Dawn. How concerning is this statement to you, given what we saw in 2020 when the election workers, they were often intimidated and threatened?
Yeah, it's very concerning. Let's be clear. For 40 years now, part of the Republican National Committee's strategy on a national and local level to win elections has been voter suppression. It appears that they've caught up with Democrats this cycle in as much as they have recognized that point of sale is one last opportunity for voter suppression. I have no interest in showing up to my suburban ballot box, nor do my friends in cities have any interest in showing up to their ballot box and seeing a whole bunch of folks who look like MAGA folks or seeing a whole bunch of folks who look like Proud Boys lording over our election spaces, making us feel uncomfortable. That is a form of voter intimidation, and that is per se a form of voter suppression going all the way back to the days of Jim Crow. I have no faith that Lara Trump, who has no concept of what an equitable ballot box access looks like, wanting to put poll watchers there. I have no faith in this, and it is another very clear pillar of a Republican voter suppression strategy.
Okay, Don Calloway, Susan Del Percio, good to see you both. Much appreciated. See you next week. The story of how and when Don